So yeah, just to go right on that. Yeah. So. Yeah. I just went for it anyway because I just assumed it wasn't fixed yet. I don't know. But I've washed my shoes in the washing machine 3 times. Still flushing dirt out of it. So, and I still probably have a good 100, 150 miles on these shoes, so I don't want to throw them out yet.
Yeah, yeah.
I might need you to link me another packet. Can you send me a link for a packet?
I can send you the link to the website of the packet.
Yeah.
I think this is the website here.
Perfect, thank you.
That's bad. Oh, yep, it's 6. I'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would take an approval of the regular agenda. Sean made a motion. Rick, or
Second.
Bruce seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The next item up is the consent agenda. Are there any questions on that?
Yes, I would like to, pull, the purchase of the, F-600, truck from wastewater. And I also want to pull, the purchase of the Chevy Equinox for the police department.
Okay. Do you want to discuss it now?
We can, if you'd like to, we
Yeah.
can make it pretty easy.
Yep.
Well, we're putting off buying a fire engine for a year, for the police department. Why don't we do that with the rest of the stuff too?
So I will say, Rick, that we have not yet formally said we were going to put off buying the fire truck. I know when we first started talking about that, that first came up actually when Chief Rinda came to me and said that I don't think we're gonna need to buy a fire truck right now. But that would be a discussion that we would have when we have our CIP discussions here starting about a month. The purchase of these 2 vehicles was approved in the prior CIP and we did put it in the 2024 budget already. And so that's why they are on here for purchase.
All right, that does it.
Okay. Any other questions on the consent agenda? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
There's been a motion by Bruce, seconded by Maggie. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next item is the public is invited to be heard on matters that are not on the agenda. Does anybody want to speak to the council on anything that's not on the agenda? Seeing or hearing none, I'll move on to our next presentation, which is the POPS facility update. Den Gardner.
Apparently, my computer does not work with the,
Okay,
so
they'll
Josh is going to
help you out.
help me out, I hope.
Oh yeah, here we go.
And I'll just be doing this while I make my presentation.
Go ahead.
All right, you may have heard a rumor that we're trying to build an outdoor performance facility here in town, and we're making great progress. So if we can flip the slide. All right, so we've heard some of this before. And I think what's important for you guys is that we're currently at about $845,000 in pledges, and we're continuing to work closely with the city and staff in as a collaborative effort as we move forward. All right, a mission statement, and we've used this from the beginning when we started this process a year and a half ago, and that's to build a multipurpose outdoor performance facility to celebrate the arts and other community gatherings, from music to theater to dance to visual arts and much more. All right, so I'm putting these two examples up here for you guys because most of the questions we get are, what's the facility going to look like? And those are two pretty good examples of facilities that we're looking at. One is in Brooklyn Center that opened just a couple of years ago. The other is in Buffalo, which has been around for about 20 years. And so this is a pretty good sampling of what, if we get to the $1 million in terms of cash and pro bono services, that the facility will have a look something like that. All right, so who will use the facility? We've gone through that before. This was just, again, a reminder to you of the many, many groups that will be able to use the facility once we get it constructed. That's the location that you as a council have selected. And in working with Ken, there's a lot of decisions yet to be made about what exactly portion of that POPs will be built. And I know that there may be some updates that you can probably provide better than I can.
We're gonna try to have an update from the consultant at the next meeting on July 15th. That'll provide more details on the site and how that can work. So that's the update I can give for that.
Okay, all right. So, next slide, please. All right, so I know this is a busy slide, but I wanted to bring you guys up to date as best I can in terms of some of the details. So of the 845, I consider 745,000 of this totally bankable. We actually, I'll talk about this later, or maybe I won't, but we actually already have over $300,000 in investments that's already been gathered. And there's some question about 100,000. I know that some of that will be there, but I'm using that number right now as bankable because that's my best estimate on where we're at today. There are many opportunities for pro bono services that are going to equal $100,000 or more, and I'm just thrilled to talk about that because there is a great opportunity for us to reduce the actual cash we have to raise if some of these pro bono services come through as we expect. So we moved up the goal for the $1 million to have that raised by the end of this year instead of next year. So we're at the point where our fundraising committee, subcommittee has had several meetings, and we believe there are many, many people out there that we still haven't reached that will get us to that goal sooner rather than later. So I already mentioned the fact that the Forward New Prague Foundation has $300,000 already that's been gathered, and the prospect list remains long. When you look at a couple of the samples of blueprints that we've seen from a couple of outdoor performance facilities, we're very, very confident today that if we're in this 800,000 in cash and somewhere in that neighborhood between 800 and 900, and you look at the 100,000 area of pro bono services, we're very confident that we're going to be able to build this thing and actually hope to build this thing and start construction in the spring. So I say that because I know that there are a lot of actions that the city staff, that Ken is working on in terms of a partnership agreement that I'm not sure, Ken, if that's been discussed fully with the council or not, so I'll maybe allow you to do that at the appropriate time here. I did want to make sure that you're all aware of August 7th. We're going to have a meeting at the Bros at 6 p.m. You're all invited to that meeting. It's going to be a public meeting of sorts where we're going to invite many people to come in and see where we're at right now with the process. So will 50 people show up or 100? We'll be inviting probably a couple hundred people. Many of those will be donors, and we've had 100+ people, companies, nonprofits, other organizations who've contributed dollars to POPs. And so they'll all be invited to this meeting. We hope that we'll have an update for them on the design. Today is actually the deadline for an RFP that we've sent out as an organization to get design bids from a handful of companies. So we hope to have 4 or 5 of those. We hope over the next 2 weeks to actually choose a design firm that will design the building for us. So anyway, so the August 7th meeting would be wonderful if you guys could attend that, city staff as well. And then October 4th is the other date, and that's the Pops Gala 2 at the Park Ballroom, where we're gonna have the concert with Molly B and Squeezebox with Ted Lang. And our goal is to raise $15,000 to $20,000. So with that, next slide. All right, so I talked about the RFP to the design architectural firms, and we're only asking for permit-ready designs. We hope to select that firm here in the next couple of weeks. Talked about the August 7th meeting. We're gonna continue to look at this donation agreement that Ken will maybe speak to before I'm done here. Our goal is to have a general contractor selected by the fall, and if all goes well, we truly believe we can start construction in the spring. Next. All right, just a reminder of who's all on the POPs committee leadership team. I don't think there's probably too many names on there that you guys aren't familiar with. We are proud of the fact that we've been able to combine school people, nonprofit people, city businesses, and other leaders in the community to be part of this, and they're the reason that we've been as successful as we are so far with raising money for for POPs. Next. So how can I get involved? Be great if we had 100% participation from the city council as donors. So I'll do my ask now and then stop. So that would be awesome. And with that, I'm finished, and I'll answer any questions you guys might have. I know you've seen the PowerPoint, and I also sent a handout ahead of time. So that's pretty much all I have.
Okay. Any questions for Den?
I do. Dan, so when this is built, is this leadership committee gonna be the one that's going to manage the facility, or where's that gonna fall?
We have not had those discussions
Okay.
with anybody at this time about that.
I know in the packet it said that the maintenance and stuff would be picked up by the city, but I'm just kinda curious on who's gonna manage it and run it and, you know.
Most communities, it's generally run out of community ed or the chamber or the city staff person. That's what's been done in the past. But as of right now, our goal since the beginning was to raise the money and get it built. So
I
I
think
can't answer that.
yeah, I think some of those conversations will very much come like when we have the maintenance. Is the city officially gonna take over maintenance of this? And that would come through the donation agreement that he mentioned. And along those same lines, then would we manage using it kind of like we manage people that want to use the baseball stadium or the various pavilions around the city?
I'm just curious on, who's gonna set that fee schedule for a wedding or whatever it might be, and then where does that money go? Is it come to the city to
Yeah, so
offset those
as the
costs?
city ownership, I would assume that it would come back to us.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
is-
the history tells us from all the people that we've talked to over the last 2 years that the facility should be used 30 times a year or even possibly more, depending on how aggressive the community is in booking acts and things like that, other than what we already have and what will already go over there. But so it's certainly gonna need someone to lead that charge in terms of doing the bookings, no question.
Will you continue to do marketing then of the facility once it's built?
we would be able to do as much marketing as you'd like. That's my background. And, so, yeah, we do everything we can to help market it to
Okay.
around the area. Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, you guys.
All right, the next item on the agenda is health insurance discussion. Jenny Van, how do you say her last name, please?
Vandenice.
Vandenice? Thank you. With Gallagher.
She is online, so she
Okay.
also. But yes, so Jenny is with Gallagher, who we use for our health insurance consulting advisor work. Not exactly sure the official title, but she's just here to kind of fill us in on a potential transition we have coming up, just so that you guys are kind of aware of what's happening, as well as I'll call it a soft deadline that is coming, more of a high-level deadline. But I will, I guess, pass it off to Jenny.
Hi.
Good evening, everyone. I don't have the ability to share my screen. It looks like it's blocked out for me. So if you have the ability to do that, go ahead and share that slide. But I'll kick it off here. I'm Jenny Van Dynes from Gallagher, an employee benefits consultant. I partner with the city, along with other public sector cities, counties, and schools across the state of Minnesota. And so with that, I have been working with the city in regards to the health insurance. And sorry, I am about to share my screen here. Let's see if that pops up. There we go. You can see the PDF here. I have a PowerPoint slide for you guys. And with that, the city has currently been purchasing their health insurance through the Sourcewell pool, which is made up of cities, counties, school districts across the state of Minnesota. And for 2025, the city has a 15% rate cap in place. And a couple of other background pieces. Sourcewell has been utilizing Health Partners as their administrator or partner to administer the claims in the pharmacy network for about 20 years now. Under state statute, every 4 years, the pool is required to go out to bid. And so that happens this year. And so with that, the pool for 2025 just recently announced that they'll be moving to Blue Cross Blue Shield. The 15% rate cap, though, stays in place. Nothing changes with that. And so wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update on where things are in regards to claims. And then I know Josh also included in the memo some information on scale. So with that, an update on claims. So for 2024 year to date through May, the city is running 168% claims to premium loss ratio. So a really easy way to look at that is for every dollar that the city is paying in premium to the pool, they are paying out $1.68. So running quite a bit over budget. When the renewal is calculated, the most recent 12 months receives the highest weight. And so that your most recent 12-month claim period is running at 118%. So still running quite a bit over budget. And this is just a claims to premium comparison. So this doesn't include any administrative expenses that the pool incurs through Health Partners, fixed costs to purchase the stop loss insurance, things like that. So truly just claims to premium. And the reason we wanted to bring this up is I know we've been getting updates on scale. So the Scott County Association for Leadership and Efficiency is looking at potentially setting up pooling together the cities within the county, along with the county, to purchase health insurance together to help stabilize rates for groups within the county, those cities, for a little more transparency for groups within the city to see into how the renewals are being calculated and what different strategies are there to help decrease costs. And so the timing gets a little tricky, like Josh mentioned, in that there's a soft deadline of August 1st. And so the Sourcewell pool requires notification by August 1st. If the city is going to go out for bids, they would then not be calculated as a part of the renewal with Sourcewell. They would be bid as a new group. And with that, that cap goes away. And so wanted to just give you a quick update on that. Where Scale is at today is they're finishing up the first phase of conducting a feasibility schedule or study. And that is just wrapping up right now. Overall, the pool did show feasibility. And so now it's really starting into phase 2 in the next couple of weeks. And we're really hoping by mid-July to have an update on timeline, what the next steps are to get an administrator in place, and if this can be set up for January of 2025. And then just for history context, I won't read through it, but on the right-hand side of the slide, you can kind of see where the city has been over the last 5 years. You've overall, I would say you've had a really stable 5 years. You've had some big dips in like a decrease a couple of years ago, but you're running a lot better than trend, or you have been running a lot better than trend. So healthcare trend right now is just over 7% to 7-8%, depending on who you ask in the industry. And so to be able to sit below healthcare cost trend, the city has seen a pretty stable 5 years, but claims have increased recently. And so that's where we would anticipate nearing that cap amount for 2025, given where current data is at.
Okay,
So I think the conversation we kind of wanted to have tonight, as I mentioned in my memo, is a much higher level conversation. We don't have data yet on exactly what cost would be, and I don't think we're going to have that data before this soft deadline of having to notify Sourcewell of whether we are going to look at potentially moving around for 25. But speaking to Jenny, it sounds like if we notify Sourcewell that we're potentially, or that we will be looking just to see, that it allows them to remove their 15% cap. And knowing how high these claims are right now, I don't know if we'd get a better deal, or in fact, it could potentially get much worse, especially without the cap in place. And that's why in my memo, I put, and I guess we don't need an exact decision tonight. We certainly still have time before August 1st if we want to come back and talk about this again at the next meeting, but I wanted to share with you guys the information that we have so that we can kind of make that decision. Do we want to stick with Sourcewell for 25 and then maybe go out next year depending on what that potential cap looks like? Do we want to test the open market knowing that it could potentially cause our Sourcewell numbers to even rise up too as well? That's kind of where we're at this point.
Jenny, do you get a sense from Scale how long a phase 2 would take, or have you worked with other organizations that have done a feasibility study and then gone on from there into other phases? And obviously, the reason I ask is that if we have this soft deadline of August 1st to tell Sourcewell what our plans are we going in with that decision with the information we need based on what Scale might be proposing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So Jessica, a public sector colleague of mine, she's actually leading this study with the county. And the goal would be to hopefully have it a couple of weeks before the August 1st timeline, where we're at in the process of here's the timeline. Can we feasibly get this set up for January of 2025? Generally speaking, there's interest. The pool overall showed some feasibility, and so it's just getting decisions from all the groups. Do they want to move forward to the next step? And that's just the piece that's being wrapped up right now. Is our groups interested for January, and then building out a timeline from there. At this point, if cities are interested, we're working towards, at this point, that January timeline. However, to Josh's point, I don't anticipate that we will have the ability to know by August 1st who the administrator will be and or any firm rates yet at that point. That likely would come probably later August into the September timeframe, but I'm hoping by mid-July we can kind of have that time frame built out, and here's when we will have an idea of who the administrator will be. Is it Health Partners? Is it Blue Cross? Is it United Healthcare? and then back into when we would have rates and when we would need a final decision from the city. But unfortunately, I don't think we'll have those pieces by August 1st.
Okay, and is there a sense of how many cities within Scott County scale that would be interested in joining this pool? Because I think, Josh, you bring up a very good point, that if the pool is small, that it can increase our liability.
So I will say, I guess I don't know if Jenny is necessarily at liberty to speak to that, so I won't put her on the spot. I know I've had
Okay.
conversations with all the administrators. There's a few who are very interested, and there's a few who really don't have any interest at all due to either their current setup or who they are used to using as their insurance person, and they don't know if it would really mesh anyway. So at this point, I would say participation in terms of just number of agencies would be closer to 50%. I don't know if it would be higher than that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are those individual cities that you might have been talking to, is that information, I'm assuming they have the same information that we do versus claims versus
Yeah, so
premium, so we would know going in who the cities might be that would join us in a new pool. And
yeah,
if they're below that market rate too, that could be a good decision maker for us to say, hey, we got 6 cities that want to split away. And with the fact that we're under the market rate, is that correct, Jenny? Am I saying that right? That if we found 6
Yeah.
cities or whatever?
So yeah, so that's a big component of joining a pool or wanting to join a pool, is just understanding exactly what you're talking to. There's going to be years like the city is in right now where you're running higher or not as in a good a place as the rest of the pool. So hopefully the pool can bring down that renewal. So we know typically at Gallagher pools typically run better than trend. And that is our goal, is to run pools better than healthcare cost trend. But there's also years, you also have to kind of acknowledge that there are years where you might be running better than other groups in the pool. So you're also helping them out. So you're buying in really for the good and the bad. But yeah, to your point, like this would be a time where hopefully the pool will be able to help you bring down that renewal from being on your own versus when you're with the pool. And then conversely, if the city is in a really good spot, you're helping out those other groups too.
But the pool could go the other way too.
yeah. So Sean, we are currently in a pool right now.
Right.
And I think just from the outside, without knowing exactly who's in that pool, we are in a fairly large pool, which I think helps out for when we have a real bad year. Like we're currently sitting at 168%.
So that 168 is just the city, that it is not, I want to make sure. I have
that
Okay.
is just the city. And ideally, you want that at 100% or lower. So in real bad years, the pool is better able to absorb that cost, if that makes sense. So I think that, at least Rob and I, when we have internal conversations, that's our biggest hesitancy of going with the scale pool, is I think even if every single agency in Scott County participated, it's going to be smaller than the Sourcewell pool, just in general. And so that's what gives us hesitation, is that if you get a couple agencies with bad years, they're going to potentially swing that pool more than you would in a larger pool. It's going to, they're to her point, there's going to be years where you're better in the pool and years where they're worse, but hopefully the fluctuations in a larger pool are going to be smaller than that in a smaller pool.
Jenny, what is the size of the Sourcewell pool? How many bodies are in their average?
I don't have the exact number of employees. I know there's like 28 to 30 groups. The smallest a group can be in the Sourcewell pool is 25 employees. I don't know how large their largest, I know they have a couple counties, so probably a couple hundred employees. So I don't have an exact number. I just know there's about 28 to 30 groups, cities and counties and schools that are in the
Would
pool.
you say it's over 500 or 1,000 people?
Oh, I would say it's over 1,000 for certain. I just don't know how many over 1,000.
And the scale group wouldn't get close to that.
Well, the county's
I
about
would say
700.
hundreds, because you'd have Scott County and
Or the
Shakopee.
county is considered?
So the county
Is
and
self-insured
Shakopee were
right
the
now.
two that
Yeah,
were kind of the
started
driver
this.
that said, hey, let's look at this. And that's where Scale kind of said, yeah, this kind of feels like what Scale's about, everyone working together, so let's look at this. But it was the county and Shakopee that were the original two drivers of looking at this together.
And the county right now is self-insured for
And
healthcare.
for, not that we would consider it this year, but are there other pools we would be eligible to join?
There are. So there's the Minnesota Healthcare Consortium that's made up of a few different regions of the state. And then there's also the PEEP pool, which is the state pool.
And then Sourcewell, our pool, has it run historically with trend, below trend, up, above trend, or what historically have we been at the pool?
The pool overall, I would say, has kind of run at or slightly above trend over the last few years, kind of in that 8 to 9%. And they've had min and maxes usually between, I would say, low single digits to kind of mid-teens, similar to what your cap is today, is usually kind of their max. So usually staying on that lower end of renewals versus some of the other pools we've seen recently, some fluctuations in their underwriting, and have seen a little bit higher renewals from some of those other pools.
Not to give out secrets or anything, but is there anybody in our makeup of our pool that has more of a loss history that drives above trend? That is the driver of it, or is it pretty diversified?
We don't. Yeah, it's pretty diversified, and we don't have great insight into how every single. I don't personally work with every single city and school and county in the Sourcewell pool, so I don't have an exact sense of how every single group is running versus the city of New Prague. I do have a few other clients in the pool, so I know what their experience is, but overall, we don't necessarily have that great of insight into the Sourcewell pool and how the other groups are running. I would say that would be one difference with Scale is with Scale, someone from the city would directly be involved on a more intense basis of like seeing how the renewals are calculated, how other groups are also running. There's going to be a little bit more transparency with that pool than maybe what you have today with the Sourcewell pool.
I do also know, speaking, that makes me think of Scale, they did speak that if they were to put this together, they'd probably try to get more of a contractual thing where if you're in, you have to be in for a certain amount of time. Or if you decide to step out of the pool, you're going to have to be stepped out of the pool for a certain amount of time to kind of try to control that fluctuation. So maybe you're not jumping in and out every single year as you try to shop out the best rate.
How do we, how do we determine that we would be better off by going with a different pool?
No, that's a good question.
It's a really good question. I think it depends on kind of what your goals are with the pool. I mean, obviously we can get rates, and that's going to be a component of it. But there's different pools. Like Scale is also a pool, but it's going to function differently than the Sourcewell pool. The Sourcewell pool has some well-being programs in it today that are also offered with the health insurance. With Scale, those will be determined by the cities that make up the pool and what do they want to offer to the members, what would be helpful to increase health within the pool. And so there's going to be different goals within different pools. The Minnesota Healthcare Consortium, I would say, functions very similar to the Sourcewell pool. And then the PEEP pool, I would say, is, if you're comparing apples and oranges, is the orange in the sense that it has a very different setup in how it functions from an employee or a member standpoint. You have to pick a primary care provider. Depending on who that primary care provider is, you have different benefits than someone else at the city. And so I think it's just dependent on what your goals are. And then obviously a lot of it also comes down to rates.
I think it's all great information, but I think it's, there's too much uncertain information in the next month to make what I view as a pretty material change.
And I think if we'd had a year similar to our last 4 years where we were running at or below 100%, I think those would be the years that you'd want to go out and say, hey, why don't we look at all the other pools and see what we're doing? I think just with our high claims numbers right now, that there's a real shot that it could only get worse for us to go look this year. And so, like I said, I don't know if we necessarily need a decision tonight. Let's think about it for 2 weeks, but right now, I think the recommendation coming from staff is that this would not be the year to go looking for another pool or a better rate. 'Cause I don't know if there's one
I
out
don't
there.
think you'd get one. No. Okay, any other questions for Jenny?
All good information. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Okay, the next item on the agenda is city engineer projects update.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to comment on is the 2024 project has been moving very slowly. We've had a lot of rain, obviously. Just to point out, last year we had 2 rain days. This year we've already had 17. So that's roughly 9 to 10 weeks of work, and they've already lost over 3.5 weeks. So the contractor's trying to catch up by working as many Saturdays as they can, but they got rained out the last 2 out of the 3 Saturdays, so that isn't helping at all. But they have 2 crews in town, so I still believe they'll get done by the contract deadline. That doesn't mean they wouldn't have the right to ask for an extension on that due to the rain, but they still believe they'll get done, and so do I, before that October 20th, I think, deadline. So other than that, any questions I can answer?
Anything gonna have to be pared back? Maybe not gone into this year, or do they think they can get the whole thing done?
Nope, still
this
believe we'll
point.
get everything done, yes. I mean, if it's gonna continue like this, it's gonna be a different story, but
Yeah.
I think there's gonna be some dry weather soon, knock on wood.
July is dry, right?
I hope so. Yep, that's all I got.
Okay. Any other questions about that? Otherwise, I'll move on to the next item. Item A underneath resolutions is a resolution authorizing the permit for an outdoor patio for the Outlaw Saloon.
All right, I have a quick PowerPoint summary of the discussion at the Planning Commission meeting from last week. So again, yes, we are looking at a resolution for the outdoor patio to be approved at the Outlaw Saloon on Main Street. They purchased the bar that was previously known as Pioneer Saloon back in 2023. They wanted this conditional use permit to have outdoor seating for drinking and, typical activities out there. And our code from the zoning ordinance requires it to be fenced in. We had some discussion at the Planning Commission meeting regarding the ordinance only requires a 4-foot tall fence, but they're proposing 6-foot tall. Staff believes and the police department believes that that is the best way to control drinks from possibly passing over the patio area into the nearby parking lot, and then obviously the Central Plaza patio directly to the east as well. But they're proposing a 42 by 18 foot enclosed patio right on the north side, basically right outside the back door of City Hall here. Northern section of the patio, they're gonna have a smaller fenced in area that will actually hold their garbage bins and extra chairs and the like. And then there'll also be like a walkway on the very west side of the building that'll provide their emergency egress in and out of the patio area. I'll show you a drawing here in a second of how that'll work. But that also was designed that way. Mr. Sabota, the resident and building owner directly to the west, had concerns about noise. And this will move the patio basically 6 feet away from his building wall. And he's appreciative of that occurring that way. For an outdoor patio, we typically only require outdoor parking be added if they have more than 30 outdoor seats. This patio would only have 20 to 25, so they don't have any additional parking required for that. As I said at the public hearing, we had just the one neighbor provide concerns of noise, and specifically we talked about that they are not allowed to have external music beyond 10 p.m. on any night, subject to any other special event permit that may be asked for events when they're needed, but 10 p.m. is a typical end time. And the Planning Commission did recommend approval of the patio on a 4-0 vote. We'll just zoom into the patio drawing here. Try to give you a little visual here. So if you look to the top of the map, that would be north. You can see the little area where they would have their dumpsters and extra chair storage. So double doors so they can have the garbage truck pick up from basically the parking lot side near City Hall here. And then the walkway runs along, Mr. Sabota's building, which would be on the west side of, their rear, portion of the lot. Then you'd have Central Plaza over on the, east side of the area there. One question I think that Commissioner, or Councilmember Ryan brought up was if they would connect to or utilize a portion of the fence for Central Plaza, and the answer was no. It'd be roughly a little over a foot away from that, just due to the fact that they don't own obviously up to that property, but they would have their own control of their own fence on their property there. There's a little concern about trash and things being collected in there, but it was noted by the applicant that they would keep an eye on that and make sure that anything that got dumped in that area, they would pick that up. So I think other than that, this was the look of the fence that they're going for. Pretty attractive fence, again, 6 foot tall, should very easily prevent free passage of beverages in and out of the patio area. And then just a couple of views there. So again, along that right side of the photo, that's where the walkway would be in for that. Always have that free passage into the back of the patio. And one thing to bring up as well, you can't just walk in and out of a patio unless you first go into the building, and that's a standard that is found throughout all of our patios in New Prague. So bartenders or other staff of the bar or restaurant can visually keep track of who's going in and out of the patio area.
So that's kind of like a exit door only.
Correct, yes. Just another view there. There's the existing fence on the Central Plaza patio, but this fence that they would be adding would be obviously on the inside of that. So that's what we have for staff report. And again, Planning Commission and staff recommend approval with the conditions contained in the resolution in the packet.
Okay, any questions of the council? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion on that resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 24070101, authorizing the conditional use permit for an outdoor patio for the 103 Main Street West.
Okay, there's been a motion by Maggie. Is there a second?
Second.
Bruce made it the second. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. There you go.
When do you hope to have it done, Rob?
Okay, the next item is a resolution talking about density parking and parking of the 54-unit apartment building at 102 Kalupski Avenue Southeast.
All right, just another quick PowerPoint for the council to review the summary from the Planning Commission in this item. So 1019 Development LLC, which is a joint effort between Marv Deutsch and Eber Construction, would be the developer for the project for this 54-unit, 3-story building. Council's aware we've talked about a Minnesota Housing Finance Agency application for $499,900 from the state. We won't hear about that till probably mid-August, but same project that involved, and we talked at that time also about some tax abatement that would be considered at a later date as well. So again, the variances we're looking for tonight would be specifically to allowing 40 units per acre on the property versus the 32 units per acre that the ordinance allows today in the high-density residential district. And then would be reducing from the 2 parking spaces per unit down to a 1.7 parking spaces per unit standard. So we'll get into a little detail here about the site. Back in 2020, for those of you on the council at that time, the property was rezoned from B2 community commercial to high-density residential. That was for, at that time, a 43-unit apartment building. And the council also granted a couple of variances. One for a reduction of the north property line setback from 30 feet to 10 feet. And then from the south property line from 30 feet to 27 feet, 7 inches. So those are still in effect and still in place. The footprint of the building from the 43 unit to the 54 unit building is no different. We had talked about this a little bit with the MHFA application, and we talked about it more in depth at the Planning Commission, but the unit mix is what is different within the building. The mix that they have done for their marketing analysis shows that smaller units from efficiency slash, what was the other name you had for the units, Jake? alcove apartments, up to a 2-bedroom with a den. They would not have any 3-bedroom units, so that's part of the reason why they're able to fit more units into that same footprint of the same building. Underground parking was increased in size from the previous plan that the city had reviewed to the one now. So as we said, basically 75% of the studio or units would be alcove/studio or 1-bedroom units. So they really skew on that smaller side, which if we had a zoning ordinance that looked at the parking requirements per type of unit, like many cities have gone to or are going to, and what we would likely recommend that we do with our code rewrite after the comp plan amendment. We ran an example from the city of Shakopee, for example. I think they require, and we talked about it at the planning commission, from like 1.25 unit or spaces per unit in a studio on up to like 2.5 for a 3-bedroom. Just using their calculation, and actually what Farmington had as well, we would be meeting the minimum of those cities plus having 4 additional if we followed those requirements. So basically, in a nutshell, our parking code is kind of old. We haven't done any update on it for at least 20 years. I think it's been closer to 30 years, quite frankly. And, you know, I think we do need to look, when we do amend the code, at the types of unit and the mix to come up with our requirements. But based on probably a more modern code, we believe that from a staff perspective, and ultimately the planning commission agreed with that, with their recommendation was that we think the parking would be adequate at 1.7 to 1 ratio instead of the 2 to 1 that we have currently. We did not have a formal public hearing scheduled, but the planning commission did open a public hearing. We had comments from neighbor Roger Beckius and his wife were here. They live directly to the west. And then Holy Trinity Lutheran Church had questions about if this project for the apartment would extend or require the extension of First Street through their property. And if the council will recall, we have an amended developers agreement with Holy Trinity that once First Street gets to both of their property lines, there's already the one on the west side from the Prague Village apartment that met that, but we still have the gap with the Beckius property, and likely that won't happen until they sell or somebody moves forward developing that. So they don't have to worry about that extension being required at this point. A number of different discussions took place at the during the public hearing, actually, with the planning commission and staff and the applicant regarding the applicant's project in Delano, and how they're parked at that same 1.7 to 1 ratio, and how they have generally about 1/3 of the parking lot, the open surface lot available for parking, because it's just not full. And then we had discussions on how do they monitor junk vehicles, how do they monitor generally tenants sign a lease to make sure that, you know, they're not gonna have that problem, and obviously to their you know, operation of that facility, they wanna make sure that they have adequate facilities as well. So one discussion point that came out of that, staff did check with the city attorney, because the question was, could we add a condition related to limiting junk vehicles and or limiting people from parking boats, RVs, and other trailers, not only on the site, but, you know, on adjacent roadways. And City Attorney Scott Riggs indicated that regarding the junk vehicles, we already have a code provision for that, so it really wouldn't make sense to add an additional code provision to this variance, because it applies broadly throughout the city. So we obviously have that we take care of regardless of if there's a variance granted for a property, we have the code. And then regarding limiting parking boats and RVs on a public road, Attorney Riggs thought that would be problematic from a legal standpoint, having a particular set of residents limited to where they could park on a legally parked area on a public road. So he didn't recommend it having that being added as condition either. But in that case, this property, there really is nowhere to park on Chalupski Avenue Southeast, being it's striped for a center left turn lane and 2 drive lanes, so there's no parking on that road. Potentially, there could be parking on First Street Southeast, but again, the applicant's experience and staff's belief that the ratio of the parking, we shouldn't have that issue even with visitors going to the property once it's fully occupied. So that was kind of the main bit of the discussion at the meeting. And ultimately, the Planning Commission did recommend approval on a 4-0 vote. So again, this is the property directly south of the Walgreens site over on the east side of town. That rendering is just an example of a 3-story building with underground parking, not necessarily indicative of exactly how this building would look, but the general L shape gives you an idea of how that could look. This was the floor plan, or the site plan, I should say, with the previously approved variances, and then obviously with the unit mix being changed, the footprint doesn't change in this building. It's just, again, the types of units that are allowed in there that we believe do not put that same parking demand as larger units would. So really no change in that layout. And just a couple of views here of the site. So again, staff of the Planning Commission recommend approval of the variance with the resolution in the packet that has 6 findings in that drafted resolution. So we stand for questions. We obviously have the applicant representatives here if you have any questions of them as well.
Okay, council have any questions?
I'm not suggesting anything, but the width of the Walgreens exit is not gonna change or anything, is it?
We're not looking at having that change. They obviously have, and I talked about this at the Planning Commission meeting, there was a traffic study done for New Prague Commons that anticipated, obviously, we thought it would be more than just residential or retail at Walgreens, but this site we thought would have some kind of a commercial development at that point, but they designed it with a turn lane in and then an out and a left or a right-hand turn lane. Should be adequate for that. We don't require traffic impact studies for anything unless they exceed 140 apartment units. So this one being 54 is well under that threshold. Traffic study again was very conservatively done. I think early on in the development and build out of that area, I think it seemed like overkill, but as that site builds out, and we have 2 outlots basically out front and then the one south of the strip mall yet to be developed. I think it'll function as it was designed to function. So not anticipating needing any change.
You said a right turn lane on Walgreens going out?
Yes.
Yeah, it seems, it's an odd thing to me because it's not wide enough to accommodate a right turn lane, the center and the
Yeah, and they
entrance, so
actually,
it's-
I noticed the other
it's
day, they
really,
actually need to restripe some of that to make it more apparent. But,
I'm not sure how they're gonna get the width to even stripe it, but it's an odd section there. It's
If you follow the arrows, you're gonna be sitting there and somebody's gonna look at you and you're gonna have to.
yeah, you're in the wrong spot.
yeah, a lot of people don't follow the arrows.
No, I know, so.
Right.
Because you'd get hit otherwise, probably.
So the exit for the parking lot going on that street is on the
On First Street would be right here, there's a curb
far
cut there.
west, right? Far west part of the lot?
Correct, yes. Yep, right here.
Southwest, yep, down there.
Okay. I don't have any questions.
Okay, anybody else? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 24-07-01-02.
Second.
Motion's been made, seconded by Rick. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. All right, the next item up for discussion is general business, and we're gonna talk about a preliminary plat of Steinison addition.
Yes, I have another quick PowerPoint, again, item from the Planning Commission meeting at, the Planning Commission meeting last week. So this is a rural plat within our extraterritorial subdivision review area. Plat would consist of 3 lots and 4.1 acres of land, and this is actually, again, in the LeSueur County R1 Urban Rural Residential Zoning District. Applicant actually has a rental home on the property out there. He would intend to keep the lot with the rental home, which is the eastern lot, and then the two western lots is what would be marketed and sold off. And we'll show some maps here in a minute of how that would lay out. Again, we have extraterritorial subdivision review authority. We basically go out, not quite 2 miles, because we have a little border issue with the city of Heidelberg that also put in effect a few years ago. They're 2 miles, but it's well within our review area. And the thing to note is that the county retains all the planning and zoning authority out there, so we really only review the plat. We don't have any other authority out there, so we're mainly looking for future roadway corridors being maintained, any ability for the roadways to have future utilities, water, sewer, electric and the like, and that they're not being negatively affected by the plat. One thing I did want to note, Sewer County did not, or I should say, did review a variance for the lots 2 and 3, which are the two eastern lot, or western lots, excuse me. And they did grant that variance at their meeting on June 20th. So we were, typically would probably have done this as a preliminary and final plat, but we did not have their recommendation at the time of writing the staff report, and that's fine because we have a couple other things to be finished up here before the final plat. But they approved that, so that allowed those two lots to be dimensionally smaller for the northern of the two lots and in area, and then the southern lot was just a little bit small in the overall area. And it was mainly due to some county right-of-way, or township right-of-way that the township wanted to have there. So we did have a public hearing at our meeting last week at the planning commission. We had one public comment from a neighboring property owner, and just making sure that the lots are gonna remain single-family residential, and yes, they will, but again, that's the county zoning that prevails on that topic. So planning commission did recommend approval on a 4-0 vote, the one finding and 7 conditions in the staff report. We haven't had a preliminary plat come to you guys for a while, so typically you probably wonder, why don't we have a resolution for this? So resolutions approve final plats, motions in Minnesota approve preliminary plats. So there's just a motion to approve the preliminary plat at this point. We would bring the final plat back, hopefully within a month, for the final plat approval. Take a look in the overhead. So the long lot on that east side there is what will be obviously the lot with the rental home that you can see closest to 15th Street Southwest, which is a future major collector road if it is annexed into the city at some point in the future. And that was one of the things, the township and the county both wanted to make sure that access for lot 1 and 2 off that west side will be from Ridge Drive Southwest, not from 15th Street being a more major road. So that was one thing that was noted in the preliminary plat approval as well. So again, 3 lots, pretty simple plat, but the county did approve the variance from their normal lot standards for basically because there's a shed that needed to be jogged around, and then that right of way that was needed for the township road. Just a different view of the preliminary plat, and a couple other photos here for you. So again, these are areas out of town that have larger than normal city lots. It's kind of a unique area where, you know, typically we look to see if you could divide into, you know, quarter-acre lots for the city, but the whole neighborhood out there, the homes generally sit right in the middle of the lot. So short of, you know, at some point in the future, demoing these and splitting further, not really greatly conducive for, you know, typical city lot development, but, you know, certainly nice lots nonetheless, but a little more expensive to get utilities to out in the future, but the entire neighborhood is like that. Just a couple more views looking at that property as well from Ridge Drive. So again, staff of the planning commission recommend the preliminary plat approval at this point. And again, we'll probably have final plat within roughly a month for final approval.
So I just have a question because, and it's more general than this. So they're required to come to the city because they're within that for this, because it's a bigger area.
Mm-hmm.
So then when somebody builds a house or something, whether it be Scott or Leesore,
Yep.
within that area,
Yep. Yeah, we do not have building code authority, we don't have zoning authority, so we don't issue building permits, we don't do rezonings, we don't do any of that. We only have the plating authority out there.
Okay.
So we always have to coordinate,
That's what's,
again, to make sure that they could build a house if that's the intent. And that, in the case of this one, they said, yeah, we're okay with it, but you're gonna have to get variances first. So they go to the Board of Adjustment at the county, make sure that was approved, and then we could move forward with the preliminary plat, so.
okay.
Yeah, a lot of coordination there.
Yeah,
It's unique, but I think it does a good job protecting our future growth, particularly in the areas where, you know, at some point we will have utilities and annex out there, but
Yeah, it's just.
not immediate. We just want to make sure that there's not a lot put in front of a major road corridor, you know.
Mhm.
This definitely is not impeding anything like that, so.
Makes sense. Okay. So you need a motion to approve this,
Preliminary plat and referencing the finding and the conditions that I had in the memo of the council summary.
okay, I'll make that motion. Just what you said.
Second.
Rick seconds it. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, we're down to miscellaneous, and it's time to go around the horn, so I'll start with Maggie.
Just a couple of things for the golf board, if I can. I did have a person approach me to question about the scheduling of start times on the golf course. I think currently they're 7.5 minutes apart, and there was some research done on this person's part to maybe schedule them 9 to 10 minutes. Evidently, there was some concern about how long it was taking individuals to get through the course. I don't know anything about scheduling, so I don't quite understand why scheduling longer in between start times would affect that or not, but it was just a comment, and I thought I would bring it forward. The other comment from the same individual was the potential for the golf board to take a look at utilizing certain insurance companies' wellness benefit, in particular for retirees, where there are programs called Silver Sneakers, Silver and Fit, you know, that sort of thing. So an example is at various gyms here in town, me as a new member to Medicare, I don't have to pay for a membership through Silver Sneakers. But every time that I use the gym up to a certain number of times per month, my Medicare Advantage plan pays the gym for my use at a capped dollar amount. And the thought is that perhaps the golf course could take a look into seeing if something like that could apply to them, because it's considered a kind of a wellness sport. And it would allow retirees to golf at a lesser dollar amount, but then the golf course would get reimbursed so much per month, you know, I don't know how many visits or whatever, from the insurance company. And I believe that the golf course, according to this individual, could then determine what hours that benefit could be used, so it's not being used at peak hours, and it might be more off-peak hours. So just a couple of suggestions I wanted to bring forward.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that. I know the Aquatic Center currently participates in Silver Sneakers.
Yes.
There have been conversations about maybe going away from it, but it's certainly something that we can look at and see if it would be beneficial for our course.
Yeah, it was just maybe a way to increase some
Drive
revenue by
use.
getting more members golfing.
Yeah,
So,
we will certainly check it out.
thank you.
Sean?
No, I just want to make sure that you guys all got the email on the fish fry. At the fire department.
Was that your job? That's why it came out so late?
Yeah, exactly, so. Worried about that, so.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. I don't have anything.
I don't have anything.
Nothing. Josh?
A few things. I have been in contact with a representative from Union Pacific here the last couple weeks, going back and forth. They are interested in using our city center lot for a few weeks, mid-July through August, as just kind of a staging area to keep some work trucks at night and then to park employee vehicles during the day as they work in the area. So I have been kind of going back and forth and talking with them about that, about setting up a contract and them paying for the use to use that for a few weeks. So just letting you guys know, nothing's finalized yet, but if it does end up finalizing, I will certainly let you know about that.
Just to let you know, right outside my window is where that's at, and they've been using it since a good month and a half already.
That is good to know. I'll see if we can get paid for that as well then.
There you go.
Yeah, it seems like the south side, they're using it for putting old
And
ties or something.
I know they've been using the,
Forfeit, or
the lots that we are just closed on here last week. And so that is something where, now that we're in ownership of it, we can potentially actually do something about it. Also, just to let you know, I did update the 2024 visioning plan with updates and put that out on the shared drive if you want to go look at that. Absentee elections began here last Friday here at City Hall. So anyone on the Scott County side of the city, in city limits, if they want to absentee vote, is done here at City Hall. If you're on the LeSueur County side, you still have to go down to the courthouse in La Center. And if you're outside of city limits, even if you vote in New Prague, if you do not have a city, and I won't even say New Prague address, because some people outside of New Prague, their address says New Prague, you have to be in city limits on the Scott County side. You absentee vote here at City Hall during City Hall hours. Then just for information, filing for City Council elections is July 30th through August 13th here coming up. So just to put everybody on notice for that. And we also, I know we have a golf board spot that is open. We did hear from the person who term ran out that they're interested in renewing. And so assuming it all works for you all, we'll probably have a short interview before the next city council meeting about refilling his currently open seat, since we did not have enough applicants to fill all of the seats. So, that is all I've got.
okay. Robin,
I don't have anything.
Ken,
Nothing more.
Chief,
Nothing for me.
Matt? Nope, nothing. Okay. With that, I take a motion to adjourn, and we
So
have.
moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Rick and Maggie, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And we do have a closed session here coming up. Special meeting.